it does give me the perspective that I can take into loving myself more, into loving my partner more, and showing up effectively for her, staying faithful in the relationship because I do have that love for myself now. And, you know, if I ever do have kids one day, I can show up more effectively for them. Because I now know, you know, the cost of not doing that. Hey guys, my name is Joe Fitzpatrick. I'm the host of the Evolved podcast. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my story. This covers most of my life from my teenage years up to 2020. I recorded this episode on the Rising Summit podcast back in 2020 with Amanda Meyers. She is the interviewer of this episode, and I was the subject. Amanda has become a great friend since we recorded this episode. She is a yoga teacher, a wellness advocate, and now she works as an EMT for the city of Richmond. I will be speaking with her on a future episode to talk about her journey. But I thought it would be beneficial just to recap this episode and reintroduce it to this audience, because it covers so much about my personal growth journey up to that point. And I think it really captures the spirit of this podcast, and it was part of the inspiration for me to start this podcast. Granted, you know, we've been through a lot since then. We've been through a pandemic, and we are gonna do another episode after this one that will cover my personal growth journey from 2020 to now in 2022. But before we do that, let's jump into the episode from the Rising Summit podcast with Amanda Meyers and me, Joe Fitzpatrick. Let's get to it.
All right, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
How are you feeling today?
I feel grateful to be here.
Oh, I like that. That's a good answer. Let's start by you just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, my name is Joe Fitzpatrick. I am a plant-based athlete and creative person. I've been vegan for going on 3.5 years now.
Oh, it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been.
Okay.
It's been an interesting journey, to say the least, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yes.
I also do freelance video and photography. I am in school right now at VCU in the Advanced Media Production Technology Certificate Program. I've been living in Richmond for about 4 years now. Definitely loving the Richmond scene, and I love how creative this city is, and I'm happy to contribute my voice to it.
Awesome. That's so great. Well, we're happy to have you. Richmond's happy to have you here. So you have this very healthy lifestyle, vegan, very active. Mm-hmm. Have you always kind of been that way?
No, definitely not. Throughout most of my life, I was living very unhealthy
lifestyle, and I only recently, within the past few years, started to change my diet and lifestyle to be more health conscious and active.
Cool. How old were you, would you say, when you were living a less healthy lifestyle than you are now?
Well, prior to the age 25.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I'm 33 now. So I've had about eight good years under my belt of being relatively healthy. I'm not perfect, of course.
Of course.
But I do the best I can.
Absolutely.
And from my 25th birthday, moving forward, it's been a gradual unfolding of just trying to be better and better every day.
Okay, that's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit more about what your life was like during that time period? So prior to 25, kind of what your lifestyle was like?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a pretty conservative house, middle income America for the most part. I have 4 brothers and sisters. My parents are still together, which I'm grateful to say. They provided a safe place for us where we never really had to want for anything. But I was the oldest child.
Okay.
And I was definitely a sensitive kid. So whenever I was not performing well in school primarily, or meeting my parents' expectations for behavior, I would frequently be scolded by my dad coming home from work after working long hours. He's a lawyer, and he, I'm sure, was very stressed at the time, and having to help me with my homework, and seeing that I'm not doing well in my studies, like, it made him frustrated. And he would say things to me that really hurt my feelings. I would be told, that the work I had been doing was like dumb or stupid or idiotic. And I realize now that he was, saying the things that I did were, those stupid, dumb, idiotic things. But at the time, I internalized those comments because I didn't really have a good sense of self. And I basically held on to those words out of resentment towards my dad.
Okay.
And I realized over time that, just like the famous quote, resentment is like drinking a poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Mm.
It's a famous quote, often attributed to many different people, but has its roots in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
And holding on to that resentment and that negative mindset really held me back throughout my teenage years in my 20s. I found it really difficult to truly reject those ideas, and that became my story.
Okay.
Dave Robinson, who was just on the podcast, and he talked about, the power of our story. And my story at that time was that I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
And I believed that to be true. Even though I had my parents telling me they loved me, even though in the majority of my studies I was doing well, that just became my story, and I carried it with me into adulthood.
Okay.
And I really stopped caring about my diet. I stopped caring about my physical appearance. So I would eat shitty food, and, you know, there were even times where I thought about suicide. Like, I knew I would never actually go through with it, maybe out of just fear.
Yeah.
But it was in the back of my mind, like that tiny voice in the back of your head just saying, like, you know, you're doing good, but you're not doing good enough. Like, that's sort of what I felt like I was receiving from my dad.
Okay.
And then I would tell that again and again to myself. And as I got older, you know, these negative words that I kept feeding myself basically built a wall around my true self with that resentment. And it was harder and harder for my true self to get out of it. And then as I got older into like my teenage years, that true self sort of lashed out in the form of anger.
Okay.
And that resulted in me leaning into reckless and destructive behaviors that I'm still recovering from, but I've been able to turn the tide, so to speak, in a much better direction now.
Got it. Which we're very happy to hear. So it sounds like you were going through a pretty dark time mentally, and that was manifesting itself into not taking care of yourself physically at all.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So physically at the time when you were kind of struggling with all this, I'm sure, like you said, you weren't eating well.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't getting any exercise.
Yeah.
What about like work? Were you maintaining work or maintaining school or anything like that at this time?
Well, as I got into college, I started off claiming straight edge in
When you were in college?
It's basically started in like senior year.
Okay.
After I found out about like what straight edge is, which
Okay.
is part of the hardcore music community. No drinking, no drugs for some, no casual sex. And I wasn't doing those things by default.
Okay.
So I basically just adapted that to make myself feel cooler,
Got
to be
it.
completely honest.
Got it. Okay.
Because in high school, I really got interested in like the punk rock and alternative music scene.
Cool.
That helped to shape my identity at the time. It gave me a better sense of self, a better sense of, you know, just taking pride in who you are, and having an identity that is basically, you know, no apologies.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, you know, it was a good way for me to channel that anger that I had towards, you know, myself, towards my dad, because, you know, there are plenty of voices like that in the, you know, punk rock community. You know, some for good reason.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
Absolutely.
But
so you kind of started identifying with that scene a little bit more, but it was still like your anger and your resentment were still manifesting.
Very much
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just more confident now through my newfound identity in punk rock music and how I was, you know, dressing and the music I was listening to, that sort of like just fueled the anger and the resentment even more, I think.
You probably felt like it kind of justified it.
It did,
almost,
yeah.
Right? Like all these people are angry and I can be angry too, right? Like
it definitely was a way for me to validate my feelings.
Okay.
And, you know, I would listen to loud music a lot in my parents' house, and my siblings and my parents would like constantly be telling me to turn it down. I'm like, you don't understand me.
Yeah, we all kind of go through that little phase, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You never understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then as I got older into college, you know, and I started drinking when it was actually the day before my sophomore year of college. I didn't drink my entire freshman year because I was like sticking to that straight edge identity.
Okay.
But, you know, throughout that year, I think seeds were being planted, where, you know, I was curious, you know, about like alcohol, and I never really had a healthy entrance into consumption of alcoholic beverages. My parents, they didn't drink when I was younger.
Okay.
My dad occasionally would have like a glass of wine, and still does, but it was definitely like a taboo topic growing up. It was never around.
So you guys never talked about how to do it safely or in moderation, or those conversations didn't happen really for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I was turning 21, my sophomore year, I'm a little older than most kids in my grade at the time, just because I got held back in kindergarten.
Got it.
And I decided that since I was turning 21 that year, I wanted to get a head start. So a few guys that I knew from freshman year invited me to a party the day before classes. So I got drunk for the first time. And overall, it was a pretty positive experience.
Okay. Just like a fun party situation.
Just like a fun hang with a few guys and a couple girls playing beer pong.
Cool.
Definitely not something I would want to do now.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the time, I enjoyed it. And it's sort of snowballed from there.
Okay, like the drinking snowballed from there?
Yeah. So that year, you know, I just dove headfirst into the drinking culture at my school, and started going to parties, and you know, the semester started in, you know, August, and then by October I had my first drinking charge.
Ooh.
I was at a Halloween party, and it got busted by the cops.
Oh.
And since I had alcohol in my person, that is considered underage possession of alcohol, because I had not reached 21 yet.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So after that happened, I went to court. I got 12 months probation.
Okay.
And I had to, you know, do the occasional drug test. So that was like my first legal experience and consequence as a result of my drinking, and it definitely would not be my last.
Yeah? Did you have more after that?
Unfortunately, I did. Yeah. Not proud of it, but it's, you know, the nature of it.
Yeah.
So after that incident, I'll fast forward a bit to, I guess this would have been in my junior year. I was at another party. I had gotten involved with the college rugby team, which was definitely, you know, as some say, more of a drinking team with a rugby problem rather than a rugby team with a drinking problem. There's probably more truth to that than certain people would like to admit, but that's beside the point.
Right.
So we were at a party after the game ended, you start drinking. So We had been drinking for several hours, and I was probably pretty close to blacking out.
Okay.
And I was not in the right state of mind. So
Okay.
there's this row of houses off campus near our school, and there were parties there frequently. And I was in one house. I was in one house on the same row as one of the parties that the majority of people were at. And someone was like, "The cops are outside. Don't go outside." And I don't know why I remember this. I shouldn't, but my exact words were, "I don't give a fuck.
Ooh.
I'm 21. I can do what I want." So yeah, that was pretty much my mindset at that time.
Okay.
I thought,
that's a good representation of where you were at the time.
I thought I was invincible in some respects. And clearly my judgment was off. So I stumbled outside and tried to light a cigarette. I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I haven't smoked since my 25th birthday.
Nice.
But as I was failing to light my cigarette in front of the cops, they basically could easily tell how obliterated I was.
Yeah.
So they took me in to the drunk tank. And in court, it got dismissed because they were questioning the cops' discretion, because there were a bunch of other people outside. The judge was willing to give me a pass. But that would also not be my last alcohol charge.
Okay. So you did end up getting charged with something at that point.
I was arrested, but I wasn't charged.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was junior year. So at this point in your life, you're still not changing any, no, nothing's still changing.
Not at all.
Okay.
But during my junior year, I was in addition to my major, I was taking some sociology classes just out of interest.
Okay.
And I took a food and culture class, and we got to watch the documentary Food Incorporated.
Oh yeah.
Which definitely planted some seeds in my brain about animal agriculture and the nature of our food system. But at that time, it was sort of in one ear and out the other.
Okay, so you don't feel like you didn't absorb it too much at that point?
Not at all.
Okay.
I was just like, that's interesting, and then I'll carry on living my life.
But that was a seed, so a seed was planted there.
Yeah.
That eventually led you to this plant-based nutrition that you follow now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But we're still not to the.
There's still a lot more to that.
Okay. So let's stay on track. So we're still junior year, drinking, getting charges, kind of living this destructive lifestyle.
Yeah. So in addition to being involved with the rugby team and their party culture, I was in a fraternity as well.
Okay.
Which has its own party culture.
Yes.
So those were really my two priorities at that time. And in fact, so much that in my third year, I basically failed all of my classes.
Oh my gosh!
Because I wasn't really going to them. It was the fall semester especially. That was where I was just, going out drinking, sleeping pretty much all day. I think maybe some degree of depression was starting to set in. I just didn't really want to go to school. I wanted the social aspect, of course.
Right.
But I didn't want to do any of the academics, and my performance in school really suffered as a result.
Okay.
But nevertheless, I was able to graduate.
Okay.
And while I was involved with the fraternity, I definitely really got caught up in the quote-unquote bro culture.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure some of your listeners are familiar with bro culture.
I feel like I sort of am, but I'm not 100% clear on what it means. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Essentially, it's toxic masculinity.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. There are various websites that I would follow, like My Life is Bro or
That's an account.
Yeah, it was a website. I don't know if it still is.
Okay.
And like Total Frat Move.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, websites glorifying, invalidating alcohol abuse, objectification of women, and that's basically how I started living my life. Right?
Okay.
Really did. If I had any values, they weren't apparent.
Okay.
Like my values were getting fucked up and having a good time, and hopefully hooking up with someone. But I wasn't really valuing myself at the time. I was more valuing like the next high, so to speak.
Yeah.
And always chasing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So where was what happened that made you want to change that lifestyle? Did you wake up and realize like, oh, this isn't for me, or did something happen, or?
I really wish that was the case.
That you really just woke up and had this great
that would have saved me a lot of time and energy and money, relationships, but alas, it did not.
Okay.
So after I graduated college, I was still very much in the partier mindset.
Okay.
The rugby team was gone. The fraternity, I'm still a member, but I wasn't really going to regular fraternity parties or seeing other brothers. But I lived close enough to the school where, like, on weekends when I wasn't working, I could drive to go hang out with friends that were still there. And I basically had my own, like, weekend benders, so to speak, where I would just drive up, be there all weekend,
Okay.
or like however long I could, until I had to go to my part-time job I was working at the time. I wasn't really motivated at the end of college to have a plan
Okay.
for what I wanted to do after college, which definitely did not set me up for being successful after college. So I think that's definitely hurt me in my career growth, not being as forward thinking as I wish I was.
So what were you doing for work after you graduated college?
So after I graduated, I moved back home with my parents to Virginia Beach, and I was working a couple part-time jobs. I started working as a banquet associate at the DoubleTree Hotel.
Okay.
Setting up for different meetings and also driving people around to the beach and whatnot in their vans.
Okay.
I was a souvenir photographer for a company in Norfolk.
Okay.
And then I attended a career fair where I got the opportunity to apply for a manager in training with Toys R Us, Babies R Us.
Okay.
I had also reached out to other companies there, but none of them really got back to me.
Okay.
So I went through the interview process for this manager and training job, even though I have no retail experience at all. I have no children.
So you were about to be a manager at Baby R Us with no retail and no kids.
Yeah, I thought I was still a Toys R Us kid, but maybe not. And, you know, I definitely had fond memories of, like, going to Toys R Us when I was a kid. So I thought, maybe it could be a cool job.
Yeah. Okay.
But after going through the application process and I got an offer, they offered to move me up to Northern Virginia where the job was going to be, which I did. I was also dating someone at the time who was living in Northern Virginia, so that was another motivation for me to be there.
Yeah.
And also, I was still holding on to a lot of resentment towards my parents, especially my dad. And, you know, I was not satisfied living with them.
Yeah.
I, you know, was also hard on myself, being like, I should be doing better than this. Like, why is this not working? I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I was just ready to pack up and leave the first offer I got, and that's exactly what I did.
Okay. Okay. And we're still in a destructive behavior kind of phase.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So right now I'm like 22.
Okay.
About that time. And yeah, still very much in those destructive behavior patterns.
Okay. Okay. So you move up to Northern Virginia
Mm-hmm.
to take a retail job.
Yep. And I fucking hate it. It's like literally the most miserable thing I've ever experienced.
Okay.
For me personally.
Yeah.
I'm sure for other people it would be a better fit.
Yeah.
But for me, it clearly was not a good fit.
Okay.
And I felt stuck.
Okay.
You know, I moved up to a city that was like over 2 hours away from my parents. Still not very far, but, you know, far enough. I got an apartment. You know, I did all the things you're supposed to do after, you know, moving out.
Supposed to do, right?
Yeah,
Quote unquote.
quote,
Supposed to do.
And I felt like I couldn't go back.
Okay.
I couldn't say like, hey, I misjudged this. You know, I don't think this is the right fit for me, and just start over.
Okay.
Which I probably should have done, but I didn't do that
Because you felt like that would be going backwards.
I had too much pride. I felt
Okay.
like I would be going backwards. I didn't want to go back to my parents' house, so I just sort of stuck with it.
Okay.
And I relied on drinking, and you know, when I was in my relationship, sex with my girlfriend, and you know, positive words of affirmation from her,
Yeah.
to help make me feel validated.
For sure.
That relationship ended because she felt like it wasn't a good fit for her. She had the courage to tell me that, and then from there, you know, the downward spiral pretty much continued.
Okay.
So I started, you know, looking for validation from other women, which led me into, you know, some other relationships, but my mindset was not right at all.
Okay.
You know, I was definitely more focused on myself rather than on other people.
Got it.
And I would be drinking constantly, especially on the weekends, but you know, that didn't stop me from drinking on weekdays either.
Okay.
I was getting very, very depressed because I was unhappy with my job. I was unhappy with where I was living. I was still very much unhappy with myself.
Okay.
And I still was telling myself, like, Joe, you're not good enough. Like, this, you should have a better job than this. You should be doing so much better than this. What is wrong with you?
Yeah. That's a hard thing to overcome
Yeah.
when we're hard on ourselves like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So the drinking and, the drinking really caught up to me. It really did at that stage.
Okay.
Also at that time, around that time, I moved up to Northern Virginia. It was in November of 2011.
Okay.
And in January of 2012, I got arrested for a DUI.
Ooh.
Yeah. I was in Fairfax. I was at a party at George Mason.
Okay.
I'm an adult guy, just a year out of college, and I'm out of college, trying to hook up with girls and get drunk. And I was there for like a couple hours, had a few beers and a few shots. But then when my needs were not being met, I decided I needed to leave.
Okay.
So I did a classic Irish exit,
Okay.
just leaving without saying goodbye to anyone, and found my way back to my car and started driving home. And I got pulled over by George Mason police, who they gave me the field sobriety test, and of course I failed it.
Okay.
So that was the last time that I got arrested.
Okay.
It took several months for me to go to court for that. I think it was not until September of 2012. But they eventually gave me 12 months probation with a suspended jail sentence, so I didn't have to go to jail.
Okay.
I had to do Virginia ASAP classes, which is their alcohol safety and protective classes that they do for alcoholic offenders. And I also had to go to group therapy, which was the first time I'd ever experienced any type of counseling for my behavior. And that was really eye-opening.
Yeah? Just the group counseling, the court-mandated group counseling.
even just the court group mandated counseling.
Okay.
That was like the initial, spark that lit the fire in me starting to change who I had molded myself into. Definitely not my true self, but the outer, shell of a person that I formed around myself, with so much toxic identity and destructive behavior.
Okay, so you have to go through a DUI and all the stress and financial burdens and things that brings, and then you went to group counseling, and then did you just wake up the next day and you were like, I'm done, this is it, now I'm making this big change? Or how did it do you feel like it was like a gradual process over time?
Yeah, they say old habits die hard, right?
Yeah.
And this one was a ruthless bitch, yeah.
Hey guys, brief pause in the episode to tell you about some of the great businesses that support this podcast. First, we got Weight Train. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 10% off all Weight Train and Athleticity gym gear and apparel. No matter what you need for your workouts, they have the gear to help you get it done. And if you don't see something you want, email them at team@weighttrain.com and they will take your requests for new products. Visit Weight Train for all your gym gear needs. Next is True Nutrition. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 5% off all nutrition supplements. I'm personally a fan of their soy isolate vegan protein powder, available in a variety of flavors and strengths, from light to heavy. They also have non-vegan protein powders if that's not your thing. I personally recommend the cinnamon bun and toasted coconut flavors in the heavy strength, and I add them to waffles, oatmeal, protein shakes, and ice cream. They're delicious. Check out their wide range of supplements at affordable prices that are third-party tested and verified for content quality. They are able to provide such great prices because the supplements come direct from the manufacturer without any marketing gimmicks or fancy labels. Visit TrueNutrition.com to supplement your workouts and your nutrition. Last is Hate Brand Goods. Use code EvolvedPodcast to get 15% off all Hate Brand clothing and accessories. Their goat shorts and shirts are the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn, and they have the coolest designs. However, their clothing drops are only available in limited quantities, so get your favorites while you can, and be on the lookout for other drops that you're stoked on. Visit thehate.com, spelled HVIII, for clothing to remind the world that you're not dead yet and you're ready to kick today in the dick. Back to the show.
So, yeah, I was going to counseling and I was definitely getting something out of it. It was the first time I started looking at my past and like asking like, why am I behaving this way? What led me to do these things? How did I get here? And that was definitely a good place to start, but at the same time I was still, drinking to make myself feel better or to not feel, to numb out, and also using sex and relationships to numb out and validate myself. Like, it's the interesting thing with how I was looking at sex and alcohol. Like, it's feeding myself. It's feeding myself. It's not feeding anyone else. It's definitely, they were both one-sided deals, very much so.
Even with like relationships, you felt like you were just taking what you needed from relationships instead of acknowledging what your partner
I definitely see it that way now.
Okay.
I feel like at the time I was more focused on taking than giving. I felt like I didn't have anything worthy of giving.
Okay. Okay.
And that led me to cheating, to being unfaithful, to self-sabotaging the relationship.
Okay.
And after going through other therapy sessions later in life, I think I've come to realize that I didn't feel like I was worthy of being in a good relationship because I didn't feel worthy.
Yeah.
And even when I was in a relationship with a really great person, and I have been on several occasions, I didn't feel like I was enough for them. Yeah. So instead of breaking up with them, I did everything to keep feeding myself what I felt like I needed,
right,
rather than really addressing the underlying causes of why I was feeling that way.
Okay.
And the relationship suffered as a result of that.
Yeah. Can't love anybody else until you love yourself, right?
I mean, they say it's cliche, but it's so true.
So true. It's so true. So at this point, now you've had the DUI and you've gone through some counseling and you feel like you're kind of like maybe turning a corner, but still with the behavior a little bit. So was there something after that maybe led you to kind of a big change, or did you start changing something in particular first?
So with the drinking to cope, working at Babies R Us, Toys R Us, and being super depressed about my job and my life, it started to show at work.
Okay.
So there was one day in particular towards the end of that job where my manager had to pull me aside and be like, Joe, you smell like alcohol.
Ooh.
You need to go home.
Yeah.
And
Had you been drinking before you went to work, or was that from?
That was from the night before.
The night before. Okay.
Yeah, that was from the night before.
Okay.
And I was drinking a lot.
Okay.
I don't think I had showered that morning, which is probably why I smell like alcohol.
Got it. Okay.
Maybe I would have still smelled like alcohol had I showered. Who knows? But after that was sort of like the straw that broke the camel's back with that job. My manager had to pull me aside and be like, you know, Joe, we know you're not happy here. We know this isn't working out for you. It's not working out for us. So they gave me the option of either quitting or they would have to let me go. It was one of those types of situations.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I quit. But of course, you know, I have this apartment. I'm living on my own essentially, even though I have some roommates at this time. So I had to make money.
Yeah.
Since I had my DUI happen, I couldn't drive anywhere. So I basically had to walk around the neighborhood where my apartment was to just see if there were any job openings. And there was an IHOP like right next to our building.
Okay.
And I went in, you know, had my hands basically, and asked them if I could work there as a server.
Okay.
And you know, they said they were accepting applications, so I submitted an application, and I hoped that would not be where I would have to work, but it turns out the other places I went to, you know, they weren't able to offer me anything.
Okay.
So I felt like my hands were tied again. I felt stuck. But you know, even though I never worked in a restaurant, I didn't have any serving experience. I accepted the job, and I carried my old behaviors of coping, you know, with alcohol and sex and relationships into that job as well.
Okay.
And I worked there for about 6 months. Definitely should have been shorter than that, because I would, you know, I would frequently miss work because of drinking so much the night before that I could not find the motivation to get out of bed. I was still really depressed. I've never been diagnosed as depressed by a doctor, but you know, when you're going through those repetitive behavioral patterns, and you know how you feel.
Absolutely. Like, yeah. Instinctively.
I instinctively self-diagnosed myself as having depression, and you know, that wasn't going to last long, because it's a fast-moving business, and they were not afraid of letting me go, and they did.
Okay.
So
they fired you after about 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was definitely a breaking point for me. That was like a reality check that I definitely needed.
Okay, that was the straw.
You could say that, yeah. Okay. It definitely put things into perspective that, you know, I can't go on living this lifestyle of drinking to excess and missing work and not being accountable to my employers, not to mention accountable to myself. So I started to turn things around from there. Prior to that, I guess this was while I was still employed at Babies R Us. I started getting into running. I started off with the Couch to 5K app.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
Yeah, a friend recommended it. I got interested in running because I was really unhappy with my weight, my self-image, and friends in college had told me how running was helpful for them with losing weight and being healthier. So I thought, like, I'm not going to join a gym right now, but I can go for a run. So obviously it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But I got the Couch to 5K app, and I worked my way up to running a 5K.
That's awesome.
Later that year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was actually still when you were at Babies R Us, you ran your first 5K, or when did you run that 5K?
That would have been, actually, I think it was after.
Okay.
It was after I got fired from that hop.
Okay. Okay.
So maybe it was a little over a year.
Well, that makes sense, though, because that sounds like you were turning that corner, and then you were like, okay, I'm going to go run this race.
Mm-hmm.
So you did a 5K.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And from there, it's been a evolving love-hate relationship with running.
That's how all of our relationships with running are, I think. I truly believe.
Like, David Goggins, he's someone that I've started following from the Rich Roll podcast the past few years. And, he talks a lot about, motivation and, overcoming past obstacles. And one of his famous quotes that I love so much is, callous the mind. Like, do something that sucks.
Yeah.
Do something that is uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to make you stronger in the end.
Absolutely.
And that running has definitely been that for me. It's such a beautiful metaphor that I've talked about in my social media posts. I used to be involved with Toastmasters, and I'm trying to get back involved with it now. And I did a talk on running my first marathon, which we'll get to in a little bit. But, I talked about how running has been such a beautiful metaphor for my life, because it's all about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and, being comfortable being uncomfortable. John Joseph is another guy from the Rich Roll podcast. He talks a lot about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, and looking up to those guys in Rich Roll, like those were like positive examples of who I wanted to become, and I saw running as an avenue to get in there, and I. As I got more involved with running and doing like 10Ks with my family, they're all very active. They've always been very active in different sports, and I was sort of the black sheep of the family, and I just sort of had to find my own way, and I started finding that with running, and it was a great way for me to start to connect with them as well on a personal level, and really to improve those relationships compared to where they were in the past.
That's awesome. So it gave you an entrance into some physical activity so that you could take a little bit better care of yourself and that relationship, and then also opened you up to taking care of the relationships with your family. So you guys had something to do together.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So I started doing annual turkey trots with my family on Thanksgiving. And,
those are great little family runs.
Yeah. My girlfriend frequently jokes with me about the meme where it says find out if your boyfriend or spouse's family is the one that hangs out and watches football, or do they do 5Ks or 10Ks? So my family's definitely the 10K family.
That's so funny.
would never have done anything like that in the past, but since I started getting more into running and trying to prioritize an active lifestyle, I wasn't necessarily prioritizing a healthy lifestyle, but I was trying to be more active, and that was really great.
Yeah. So now you're running, and you're kind of on this road to a better lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So what was next for you after that? So you're exercising a little bit. And what came next for you?
Well, I made some advances in my career.
Okay.
After getting fired from IHOP, I started taking my job search a little bit more seriously.
Okay.
And I started looking for jobs that were more appropriate for my degree.
Okay.
I was an English major with a journalism concentration. So I really wanted to do something related to writing or editing. And I started broadening my search. Instead of focusing on just like journalism jobs, I just basically looked for anything and everything having to do with writing and editing. And I got a job in Arlington working as a copy editor for a call center that was providing referrals to different services for military families.
Okay.
And that gave me a sense of pride.
Good.
I got my own office for the first time.
Nice.
I could wear basically whatever I wanted as long as it was, business casual.
Right.
Which was definitely a nice change from the uniforms that I had to wear at Babies R Us and IHOP.
Yeah.
I was able to express myself more and also do some work that was relatively creative. I also launched a blog called Dominion Collective, which promoted music and culture in Virginia and Washington, D.C. And I did that for about 5 years, basically with interviews of different musicians, and we also featured like some breweries and music venues, local artists, and it was primarily me, but I also had over the 5 years 20 contributors that helped me out with producing content for the website.
Nice.
As well as a couple other friends who helped me out with like the website design and user experience.
Yeah. So now you have projects. And a job that you are like taking pride in and
right.
putting your heart into, and
right.
Yeah.
I started developing avenues for cultivating my passions and
right.
trying to create my own way into better job opportunities.
Yeah.
I saw it as an avenue for me to not just promote these musicians and businesses, but also as a way for me to build my writing and photography portfolio so that I could use that to get other jobs in the future, but also help other aspiring journalists who wanted to follow a similar path. So that was where I guess that was really my first sense of like having agency and making a positive impact, not just on my own life, but on other people's lives.
Awesome. Do you feel like the decision to live a healthier lifestyle or to make these small improvements in yourself by running and changing your behavior, do you feel like those decisions impacted your decision to change what you were doing career-wise, to go after your passion and things that you wanted to actually do?
I think it's the other way around.
Okay.
I think taking pride in my passions and what interested in me and wanting to help myself, but also help others, that created more of a sense of compassion towards myself, which helped me to have more of an openness to changing my diet.
Got it.
So
okay.
I started trying to eat healthier but I was still consuming animal products. I thought I was doing the best I could.
Okay.
And then, I mean, fast forwarding a little bit, I moved to Richmond in 2016. Let's see. I was working with this job as a communications government contractor.
Okay.
As a writer and providing other types of contract support, which was a step up from my two previous jobs that I had gotten as a result of my experience working with the referrals and my website, and then another job I had after that as a copy editor. And I was really, I was overall pretty happy with the way my career was going.
Okay.
But I knew in my heart of hearts that I needed something different. Like, I knew I wasn't happy living in Northern Virginia. Frankly, I knew that for the past 5 years. I started coming to Richmond when I was in college for parties, of course, but also for like live music.
Cool.
And, you know, having, you know, my interest in the punk rock and hardcore, and, you know, I found out Richmond was a great place for that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of that here.
Yeah, very much so. I just could see myself living in Richmond. I could visualize myself living in Richmond.
Cool.
And I knew that was really where I wanted to be. And come 2016, I was in a relationship with my partner at the time, and she had just graduated from college and was looking to change things up in her life as well. And we decided that Richmond would be a good place for us because
cool.
It's a lot cheaper than DC.
A lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper. We felt like there were good opportunities there for us with what we wanted to do. And, you know, in some respects that was true, but in other respects we were a little misinformed because we didn't necessarily realize, you know, in comparison to the markets of Northern Virginia and DC and Richmond, it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller. So it's a lot more competitive.
100%.
And it's hard. I feel like it's harder to get the jobs here that you want than it would be in Northern Virginia or DC.
Okay.
So that I was really interested in, you know, continuing that copy editor or copywriter trend that I had going in Northern Virginia, but I could not get a copywriter job or a copy editor job for the life of me because the majority of them were with advertising agencies. And since I didn't have a background in marketing or advertising, they weren't really interested in hiring me.
Okay.
So I had to re-strategize with what I wanted to do because I'd already committed to moving to Richmond. I already knew it was what I wanted to do. I was very transparent with my manager that, you know, I was interested in relocating, and they had an office in Glen Allen.
Oh,
so
nice.
I was hoping that I could continue to work for them either remotely or working at the Glen Allen office. But unfortunately, we were unable to find a good fit for that.
Okay.
Especially since I had been with the company for less than a year.
Okay.
So after we moved, I worked there for a little bit.
Okay.
But then they found someone else to take over for me. And I got a contractor job with Capital One where I'm at now.
Okay.
And that's been an interesting process at the very least. started off as a temporary contract for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's, take this. Let's do the best we can.
Yeah.
And you will get this job.
Yeah.
And this will become a permanent position.
Absolutely.
So I had been practicing, callousing my mind. I've been practicing resilience with my running practice. I was determined to make this work. And 6 months turned into another 6 months.
Nice.
And then after that year being with Capital One here, they offered me a permanent position.
Awesome.
So
okay.
After that happened, I was able to take advantage of some of the different benefits that they offer, which are many, including nutritionists who I've been seeing pretty regularly.
You can see a nutritionist there. Oh, that's very cool.
At no charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I wish all jobs offered that.
I really did too.
That's fantastic.
I've thought about, looking for jobs outside of Capital One, but that's going to be a really hard market to give up. Let me tell you.
Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, let's talk about your nutrition a little bit. So you've been completely plant-based for how long did you say? 3 years?
3.5 years now.
So you said, though, prior to that, you were eating pretty well when you were kind of on this shift into a healthier lifestyle, but you were still consuming animal products.
Right.
So at what point were you like, I don't want to consume animal products anymore. I'm going to go completely plant-based?
So after moving to Richmond, I was running about 10K was the best I could do.
Okay.
After that, I was just really fatigued.
Yeah.
And I wanted to run longer. I really wanted to run a half marathon. That was my goal at that time.
Sure.
So I was perusing Netflix one night, looking for something to watch, and I came across this documentary called Food Choices.
Okay.
And I thought, why not? I'll check it out. And it featured interviews with some of the guys I already mentioned, like Rich Roll and John Joseph, talking about their experience as vegan athletes. And they also had interviews with doctors, like Michael Greger, for example.
He's great.
Among many others.
Yeah.
Talking about the health benefits of a plant-based diet.
Cool.
And I think at that time, I was just ready and willing to hear that message. I was looking for something to help me step my game up in my running, and based on what they were telling me, plant-based diets was the secret.
But you felt receptive to it. I know you already said that you had seen this other documentary that kind of planted the seeds, and you were already familiar with Rich Roll and John Joseph and those guys, and they obviously preach a plant-based diet, and they're both amazing athletes. Rich Roll is also my podcast role model, so if anybody goes and listens to his show and hears any similarities, that's because I stole his formatting, because I absolutely love his show so much. But
we love you, Rich.
We love you, Rich Roll. But so it sounds like all the seeds were kind of being planted along the way, and then this one particular night, you were just like you said, you were open, you were receptive, you were ready to make that change. So did you watch that and then you were like, that's it for me?
Sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. I watched it. And then when my partner at the time got home from work, I was like, you have to watch this. So I watched it again with her the same night. And she was on board as well.
Oh, cool. Which makes it way easier when your partner is also into it.
The fact that we were living together, sharing meals together.
For sure.
That definitely makes it more easier when both people are doing it. I found that to be true.
Yeah.
And it was at that time it was around November.
Okay.
We still had some frozen chicken in our fridge.
Okay.
Some, cheese and other dairy products in the fridge. We didn't want to throw that food away.
Okay.
We thought that we didn't want to be wasteful in that regard, since we already paid for it. And
I think that's fair.
Whatnot.
Yeah.
So with the new year around the corner, we decided to plan ahead, and effective midnight, January 1st, 2017, I would go vegan. She decided that she wanted to try just doing vegetarian.
Okay. She wasn't ready to give up the dairy.
Not quite.
Okay.
She eventually did go vegan, and then I think she changed her diet after we broke up, but that's beside the point. But I stuck with it.
Cool.
And,
that's amazing.
Like I said before, it's been a journey. It's been quite the learning experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think the real question is, did it improve your running? Because that's what you were looking, you know what I mean? Like, that's what you were looking for, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it did.
Okay. You went on to do a marathon, you said.
Yeah, so I did run a half marathon.
That's amazing.
2017. After accomplishing that, which I have to say was awful. I mean, just for me personally, just because I made my running experience has been a constant stream of rookie mistakes.
I feel like that is very common.
Yeah,
I promise you, even...
It's just another example of me being hard on myself. But,
that's totally normal. I've been running for over 10 years, and I still am constantly making rookie mistakes. And I know better. I know much better, but I still do it all the time. So it's totally normal.
So the day before the half marathon in 2017, I went to the fitness expo.
Okay.
And I bought new shoes at this crazy discount.
And then you were like, I'm going to wear my new shoes.
I was like, I need new shoes. I had developed a hole in the top of my shoes during training.
Okay.
And I wanted to have new shoes so I wouldn't have to worry about that during the race. And of course, my feet were killing me.
Nobody told you nothing new on race day.
I didn't ask anybody. I was like, I'm good. I got this.
I'm good.
So my feet were killing me after the first 2 miles.
Ooh.
But I was determined to not walk.
Good for you.
As much as it sucked, as slow as I would go, I was not going to walk. And I ran those, 11 miserable miles.
11.1.
Yeah, 11.1.
11.1 after the first two. That 0.1 makes a difference.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Just like in a marathon,
especially when
0.2.
you can see the finish line, but you're
it's
not
so
quite
hard.
there yet.
It's the longest part of the race.
I actually, so technically, the Richmond half marathon was the first official one I did.
Okay.
A week or two prior to that, my brother and his wife, they were running the rock and roll half marathon in Virginia Beach.
Oh, cool.
And they're like, come out, you don't need to register. You can just show up and do it. You're already doing the other one. So I was like, okay. So technically that was my first one, but...
So that's what you did? You went out there and didn't register?
A lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But you covered 13.1 miles.
I covered 13.1.
Nice.
But, it's...
You still feel
I still like to say the original one was my first one.
Got it.
Because that was one I actually registered and prepared for.
Got it. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
And it was really hard and it was miserable.
And
then you finished and you were like, I'm going to do a full one.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. Basically, except I'm going to wait 2 years.
Okay, so you waited a while before you did your first full.
I felt like I had accomplished the goal that I set out to do, but I couldn't perceive the reality at that time of me doing another 13.1.
That's exactly how I felt after my first half marathon. I very vividly remember somebody asking me, like the same day if I was ever going to do a full, and I was like, absolutely not. That's crazy.
That's
that was
the worst question to ask someone after they've done a half marathon.
I was like, no, I'm definitely never going to do a full, and now I've done multiple. But
yeah. So I was glad that I did that, and I got back to my normal running routine.
Good.
And, I was running on average, the 10K distance,
Nice.
which I feel is still a pretty comfortable distance for me. But then, come 2019, I was turning 32.
Okay.
And I had heard about this trail race from November Project, who I've gotten involved with over the past couple of years as well. If you're not familiar with November Project, they're a free pop-up fitness workout that typically meets they typically meet at the VMFA when we're not under coronavirus policies. And it's a great positive community of all types of people just coming together to show up for yourself and to show up for your community and prioritize an active lifestyle. They used to be sponsored by North Face, and North Face was putting on their annual endurance challenge, and they had a date in DC in April of that year. So November Project was trying to get people to sign up for it, and since it was around the time of my birthday, I felt like, hey, what a great way to celebrate my birthday than running a trail marathon. And I signed up for that pretty much right away.
That was your first full marathon?
That was
a trail?
my first full.
Which is a whole nother, that's a whole nother beast.
Oof.
The fact that it's on a trail.
That's just another example of me taking action without really thinking about it. Kind of with my shoes. But I think it's good because
because you did it.
Yeah, I did it, but in the past I would get caught up in my head and not do anything. I would frequently fall into that decision paralysis.
Right.
Sometimes even in social situations, I would be around people and I felt like I didn't know what to say, so I would just not say anything. And that's something that I've struggled with on a personal level that I'm still working on overcoming, just being comfortable with myself so I can express myself more freely. And that's, it's an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
But by practicing, showing up for myself, being present, through running and November Project, yoga, which I also got into starting in 20. It was basically after we moved to Richmond, so in 2017.
Okay.
I guess.
Where did you start practicing yoga at?
Well, officially, I started doing hot yoga.
Oh, okay.
I did a couple hot yoga classes. Once when I was in college, and then another time after that, after moving to Richmond.
Okay.
Both times were completely miserable. I was sweating my fucking ass off. And
that's what happens.
The second time was the last time because I was getting lightheaded.
Yeah.
I was probably not properly hydrated. And I was like, how do people do this,
Yeah.
But I eventually found outdoor yoga, which
cool.
is one of the other things that I love about Richmond's community. That, help, not only is health and wellness a priority, and we have all these great outdoor spaces that we can be active in, But there's a great yoga community here, which I know you are very familiar with.
I can attest to that. I do love the yoga community here.
Yeah, but I found Michelle Landon of One Drop Yoga, and
oh, cool.
Started going to her practices. With the King of Pops Yoga, formerly at the Carry On by Dogwood Dell, and
oh yeah.
That moved over to Maymont. I've also been to some of her classes at Vossen Brewery.
Nice. Are you still doing? So you're still doing yoga, or I know it's a weird world right now.
Yeah,
but...
I haven't been doing it very consistently.
Okay.
But I also started following Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube.
Okay.
And, I've done some of her practices from home.
Awesome.
I'm also a member at Triangle Rock Club now.
Awesome.
And they do yoga classes, so I've been doing those with my girlfriend, and we've really gotten a lot of value out of that.
So you've really maintained your physical activity level is still pretty high. Do you have plans to do any more events or anything like that in the future?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely. Sort of, I guess I was getting a little ahead of myself, but circling back to the marathon, I said back in 2017, after I finished the half marathon, I couldn't fathom doing another marathon. Doing another, not just doing another half marathon, but doing a full marathon, 2 back-to-back half marathons.
Yeah.
But I found the willingness to try. I found the willingness to just put one foot forward and try it.
Yeah. Cool.
And it was a celebration of me having gone plant-based. It was a celebration of me quitting cigarettes, which I quit on my 25th birthday. It was just a way for me to celebrate myself, and since my 30th birthday, that's really been my top priority. Just celebrating myself, loving myself, and trying to be better each day. And this was one way I thought of would be a good idea to do that.
Absolutely. Did you feel all of that when you were finished, when you crossed the finish line?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? It all comes up, and it's this really profound moment.
But I mean, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
It was really a struggle because thankfully I was not wearing new shoes this time.
That's okay, but you learned that lesson.
Yeah, I learned that lesson. I checked that box. My friend David, he did it with me. David is a great friend of mine, also from November Project. He was my training partner throughout the whole process, and we ran at Pocahontas State Park, since it had like the most complex trail system in the area, with some elevation gain as well, which would have been helpful since we were going to be training up in Northern Virginia, where there's the race was going to be in Northern Virginia, so it was higher elevation. But we weren't about to drive up to DC every weekend.
Yeah.
So Pocahontas was our best bet.
Cool.
And we did the whole thing together. David was my cheerleader throughout the whole process. He's such a positive support. He planned all of our routes, so that was one less thing for me to worry about.
That's amazing. What a good training partner.
Yeah, great guy.
So you finished, and all of that came up for you, and you felt that at the finish line, which is what happens when we do a big
so I finished the first 13.1.
Okay.
And I broke down.
Yeah.
I had to pull off to the side of the course. I had done half of it, I still couldn't imagine how I would do it again. I took some deep breaths.
Okay.
And I just had to tell myself, like, Joe, you can do this.
Yeah.
You can do this.
Yeah.
And I just had to dig deep into myself. I had to think about, I had to think about my past. I had to think about my relationship with my dad. I had to think about all the crap that I put myself through and, why I wanted to be there. And it allowed me to keep going.
Yeah.
To put one foot in front of the other and just keep going. I knew this second half was going to suck even worse, and it did. I got to about 20 miles, and I felt like I couldn't run anymore.
Okay.
So I tried my best to keep moving, but I just got to a point where I realized, like, you're going to finish this race, but if you got to walk, you got to walk.
Yeah.
So I basically walked the last 6 miles, and then the last, 0.2,
yeah.
we ran it into the finish line. And I have never felt, prior to that, more joy than I had ever felt in my life. I accomplished something that I thought was impossible.
Yeah.
And I think by accomplishing that and giving myself space in order to go to that place, it really allowed me to start being kinder to myself and also starting to let go of some of that resentment that I had held on to with my dad for so long. I felt like I needed to repair that relationship so that I could continue to move forward with my life in the direction that I wanted to go. And I think it was Labor Day last year, Labor Day weekend, when I was visiting them, that we sat down and really had that conversation.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a long time coming, and, we both expressed how we had felt hurt in the past, and, I explained to him how, the implications it had on my life. I don't blame my dad for how things went down and how I interpreted things that he said to me. I know that I have been very privileged in my life, and other people have certainly had it worse in certain aspects than I have. But my experience is my experience, and it led me to behaviors and attitudes that were not serving me well, and I needed to fix that. So I've been doing the work of sort of digging myself out of that hole, getting to a better mindset, so that I can continue to build from ground zero, trying to create the life that I've always wanted but never thought I deserved. But now I know I do deserve it, and I do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's pretty profound. It's a pretty profound story. So what is it now that makes you get up every day and make this decision to continue to push yourself in the right direction? What would you tell somebody if they were sort of stuck where you were and they wanted to change?
Everything that you're telling yourself, it's just a story. And, you know, it's important to hold ourselves accountable, but also to give ourselves grace, to give ourselves compassion. Because at the end of the day, and David Goggins says this, the most important conversations you have are the ones you have with yourself. And, you know, when moments are quiet, when you're in bed or, you know, just hanging out with yourself, when people aren't around, you really have to come to face with who you are and who you want to be. So I made it my mission, since I have been able to turn things around, to try and be the person I feel like I needed when I was younger. Not that my dad was a bad dad, but he wasn't really meeting my needs, you know, where I was at. And that's not his fault. But it does give me the perspective that I can take into loving myself more, into loving my partner more, and showing up effectively for her, staying faithful in the relationship, because I do have that love for myself now. And, you know, if I ever do have kids one day, I can show up more effectively for them, because I now know, you know, the cost of not doing that. So really, you just gotta put one foot in front of the other, no matter how hard it is. Running's taught me that if you fall down, just get back up and keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. That to me kind of feels like a good place to leave people. How do you feel?
I'm good with that.
Okay. It just feels like I want people to resonate. I want people to marinate in that a little bit.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was an amazing story that is just filled with, like, I feel like I can feel everything that you felt, and I think that it's amazing to watch you sit here and talk about how you now love yourself and you know what you deserve, and not even having known you that long, I'm proud of you. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I wish you the best of luck on the rest of your journey.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Again, thank you for being part of this journey with me. Please subscribe to the podcast. It will be available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at evolved.podcast, and I will respond to all messages there. And that's the only social media that we'll have for now. You can also connect with me personally through my Instagram, which is at Joe Fitzphotos, and that will be linked in the bio of the Evolve Podcast Instagram. Thanks for listening. Stay stoked and keep the PMA. Later.